How's it going, everybody? It has been forever since I've done one of these videos. How's everybody doing? Tommy's Tire. Thank you for clicking on this video. And yeah, it has been forever since I've done a top 10 video. So I was just sitting here thinking, you know, I'm pretty much caught up on my Blu-ray update. I don't need to do another Blu-ray update for a couple weeks. I didn't do a shopping video yesterday. Nothing really big came out that I was interested in getting. So I was just sitting here thinking, hey, I got to get a video out, and what better than a top 10? It has been 8 months. Yes, that's how long it's been since I've done a top 10 video. I have a couple that I've had put together for a while, but I just haven't gotten around to making the video. Today is going to be a good one. It's a top 10 video I've wanted to do for a while. So today, our top 10 category is... That's right, movie sequels. And pretty much everybody knows that for the most part, usually the first film in the series or franchise is always the best. Like, I don't know, like 80-90% of the time. But every now and then, there are sequels that definitely outdo the original. And for me, when I was putting this list together, there are actually a few titles that the reason why I picked them is not just for the fact that I think they're like a completely better made, written movie. It's not always about that to me. I mean, sometimes there might be a particular type of movie that maybe I might agree that the first movie is, like I just said, a better written, better put together movie. But I enjoy the sequel better. I find it to be more entertaining. Maybe it was the first one I ever seen when I was a kid before the original. Maybe it's just a movie that I grew up on and I like the sequel more than the original. I'm just more used to it, or I've had more fun watching it. That's pretty much, kind of how I look at this. So, but then again, there are going to be some picks here that are definitely a way better made movie than the original. So we're going to just go down the list here. Some of these, might sound kind of funny to you guys. Some of these, you guys might think, oh my God, this dude is crazy. What is he thinking? And it's, like I said, it's just, in my personal opinion. So let's go ahead and get into it now, everybody. Of course, like usual, we are going to start with a couple of honorable mentions that almost made it into this top 10, but not quite. Let's take a look at that. So there you go. Yeah, just a couple that had to squeeze in there, almost made it into the top 10. But okay, anyways, let's go ahead now. Get into it. The very first one we're going to start with, of course, is number 10.
Joyful, joyful, Lord, we adore thee. And in my life I put none before thee. Because since I was a youngster, I came to know that you was the only way to go. So
from 1993, directed by Bill Duke, Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit. Again, well, not again, since the first one, but like I was saying before, this happens to be one of those type of movies that I actually seen the sequel first. I had seen it well before I ever seen the first one, and probably just I had seen part 2 so many times that I got so used to seeing it, and I liked it so much that by the time I actually seen the original, I was just so used to liking part 2. Now, don't get me wrong, when I eventually seen Sister Act 1, yeah, it's a great movie. But for some reason, the two of these movies just feel different. Like the Sister Act 1 just has like a different feel to it. I don't mean like storyline or anything like that, but just like, I don't know if it's just the directing or what of the movie just felt different to me. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but I really like Sister Act 2. I mean, it's just a better, more entertaining story. It just with her having to take that music class of those, like, all those kids that are, like bad kids, and she's got to turn them into a choir, and it's just, it's got cool music. I love the finale. The end of the movie is just so cool when they just break out and do their thing in the the music competition at the end, and they're, they whip off their robes and they're wearing like their regular clothes, and they kind of give the song Ode to Joy like their own spin and everything, like a more funky, upbeat version. But I don't know, I've always liked Sister Act 2. I think it's so much better than the original, way more entertaining, where, like part 1 is, more focused on Whoopi Goldberg's character and, being chased by those guys and whatnot. But I don't know. I've always liked Sister Act 2 a lot better. So I definitely felt like this should make it into the top 10.
Just serve me tomatoes and mashed potatoes. Give me the simple life.
Coming in at number 9 from 1995, directed by Charles Shire, we got Father of the Bride Part 2. Father of the Bride, I believe is another movie that I seen part 2 before part 1. This one is actually, I really like part 1. Part 1 is super, super funny. I totally agree. But part 2, again, I remember actually seeing it in the theater when it came out. I think I went with my parents. And I just like the storyline better of part 2. Just the the screenplay, I think, is a little bit better than the first one. I mean, I like, it's funny, Steve Martin is great in both of these movies. I just like his performance in number 2 better. And like I said, just straight up the storyline. I just like how the mom and the daughter are pregnant together. And then, I like how Steve Martin, wants to feel young again, so he dyes his hair and does all this stuff. And I don't know, I just always like part 2 a lot better. It definitely stands out. I mean, most of these sequels, like the last one and this one, are those rare movies that if I'm thinking of watching the movie, I'm gonna watch the second one. Like, I'm not gonna like watch 1 and then 2. I'm just gonna watch the second one. Like, when I got this set, I put in part 2. I haven't even watched part 1 yet. That's how much I like the second one better. There's some series of movies that if I'm going to watch them, I just have to watch them in order. But usually when there's movies that are just like a part 1 and a part 2, I usually just end up watching, if it's one of my favorites, I'll just watch part 2. I won't even watch the first one. But, I mean, don't get me wrong. Part 1 is great, but I just happen to love part 2 a heck of a lot better. Alright, so I just have a feeling that this is definitely going to be one that you guys are just going to give me so much shit about. But from 1992, directed by Mary Lambert, Pet Semetary 2. Now, this is definitely going to be one of those movies that I 100% agree that the first movie is a better written movie, better story altogether. But then you ask, then why do you like part 2 better? I like the feel of number 2 better. I think it's a little bit more fast-paced. I think the first one's a little slower. And I'm pretty sure Stephen King had nothing to do with part 2. I mean, usually most of the time, if it's a Stephen King movie that gets made into a sequel, he had nothing to do with it. So it somewhat follows the first one. Like, they talk about things that happen in the first one in part 2. But I like the actors. I love Edward Furlong. And I know it just has a big time Halloween feel to me. Like, I think this movie used to come on TV a lot when I was a kid, like on USA, and I used to watch it all the time around Halloween, and I loved it. And it was always that one. I think when I was younger, I didn't appreciate the first one as much, like at the time where I used to watch this all the time. Like I said, I just felt like part 2 was a more entertaining movie. As I grew older, I learned to appreciate number 1 a lot more, which, like I said, a much, much better storyline. But I just find part 2 more entertaining, if that makes sense to you guys. But yeah, I mean, it's just fun. I mean, you get, what the hell's his name? From played in Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I always forget his name. Jared Rushton. Yeah, he plays in part 2 as like the bully kid. But yeah, it's a fun movie. I just like it a lot better than part 1. I've always felt that way. It's definitely a movie I have to watch every single Halloween. I just ended up watching it not too long ago. But yeah, Pet Sematary 2. Definitely, I think, a better sequel, or better than the original, in my opinion.
I'm holding out for a hero till the end of the night. He's gotta be strong and he's
Coming in at number 7 from 2004. And this is directed by Andrew Adamson, Kelly Asbury, and Conrad Vernon. 3 directors. Yeah, animated movies just always have tons of directors. But Shrek 2. This is one of those movies that I think all together, or not all together, all around, I should say, is a much better film than part 1. I think this is the best in the series out of all 4. I would say 3 is the weakest. 3 and 4 kind of tied. Part 1 is definitely, my second favorite in the series, but I love part 2. I just love the characters in part 2. We get introduced to Puss in Boots. We get to see, Shrek and Fiona as a ogre couple at the beginning. Donkey is, so much cooler, just his character in the second one. I just think it's a better story. I think Shrek 1 was a great way to kick things off. But I just love part 2. I just love the whole thing. How Shrek becomes a real person and Donkey becomes a horse, a stallion or whatever. I just love that aspect of it. I think that was a cool idea of a story, because obviously we know what Fiona looks like as a princess, and then to see Shrek as a real person, I just thought that was cool. And of course you get Prince Charming introduced in here, Fiona's parents, so many more characters, and just all around just a much more fun movie. I think Shrek 2 would just hit it out of the park. It was just such a good sequel. One of DreamWorks, I think, best sequels that they've ever made by far. And I'm sorry about this glare, but yeah, strong number 7, Shrek 2. I love this movie so much. So, buddy, Dad's doing a top 10 video right now, and the category is best movie sequels. So if you had to think about it, what movie can you think of at the top of your head is what do you walk around like an old man with a cane?
You know why.
I know. My son completely destroyed his toe, and he can barely even walk. But is there a movie you can think of that has a sequel that's better than the original? What do you think?
Spider-Man.
Which Spider-Man?
The one with the lizards is better than the first one, the one with Green Goblin.
Well, I mean, that's more of a different series. So if you look at the 1, 2, and 3 of Spider-Man, Green Goblin's in the first one, Doc Ock is in number 2, Sandman's in number 3. Do you think, which one's your favorite out of that series?
Out of those 3?
Yeah.
Number 3.
You think number 3 is the best? So that's better than the first one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see. He gets it. Solomon, where'd you come from?
I just appeared right here.
Oh, you just appeared out of nowhere.
He's God.
All right, so what movie, in your opinion, what do you think is a movie where a sequel is better than part 1?
Well, I think Batman number 2. I love it.
Batman Returns Penguin?
Yeah, that one.
You think that's better than the Joker one?
Yeah.
I like Joker.
Alright.
I like Joker better.
Yeah, I think in that series, the first one is definitely the best, but... Okay, yeah, so number 6, and a strong number 6. I knew that this would place somewhere in the top 10, but of course is going to be from the Star Wars franchise. So this one was tough. Obviously, these are broken down in 2 different sections. You got the original trilogy, then you got the prequel trilogy. And to be honest with you, I'm going to say that the number 3 in both of these different trilogies is the best in the trilogy. So the first one is going to be from 1983, which was directed by Richard Marquand. Marquand, if that's how you say his name. But anyways, Return of the Jedi. By far the best in the series. I think, in my personal opinion, it goes 3, 2, 1 for the original trilogy. But Return of the Jedi is just the shit. Just how it all kind of comes together, and the final battle with with Darth Vader and Luke, and then we get to see Vader go back to the good side, and then we get to see him take his mask off, and I just think it's just definitely the best in the original trilogy. And then you get to the prequel trilogy, by far, Revenge of the Sith just kills the other two. That one, of course, was directed by George Lucas, and that one came out in 2005. But yeah, Revenge of the Sith is almost my favorite one. I mean, out of the entire Star Wars, I think three, if you look at them in order, episode 6, Return of the Jedi, and episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, are kind of tied. I think Return of the Jedi would take the cake for me. But I just love Revenge of the Sith. A lot of people don't like that one. I really like it. I just love the transformation of Anakin turning to the dark side, and the two final battles. You get of course, Yoda taking on the Emperor. You have Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin fighting. It's just a great ending. We get to see Luke and Leia born, and we get to see the transition from 3 to 4. You know what I mean? Like, how we all know Part 4 originally started. A New Hope, and we get to see kind of how it got to be to that point. Where Obi-Wan takes Luke back to Tatooine, and how Leia's kept there. And I don't know, I love Revenge of the Sith. I think it just kicks ass. But I definitely am going to say that I couldn't really decide which one I wanted to put in here, so I just kind of threw them in together. I would say the number 3 in both of these trilogies are by far way better than the original. Number 5 from 2016, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, 10 Cloverfield Lane. Now this one's a little tricky because even though this is a follow-up to Cloverfield, it's not like it's the way they describe it is like this. They call this a, how do they describe it in Wikipedia? It's not really a sequel. It's not really a prequel. It's like a relative of Cloverfield. Like, it's set in the same universe. You don't know if it's like a prequel or a sequel or a midquel or what the hell it is. And we all know that Cloverfield was more of a found footage film, where this was actually a film. So, two different worlds, but it's still set in the same franchise. And wow, this blows away Cloverfield. I mean, this is just like, you can just forget about Cloverfield altogether and just consider this a movie of its own. I mean, if you look at it just from that perspective, this is one hell of a movie. One of my favorite films from 2016. This movie was just so good. The performance from John Goodman was just mind-blowing. This was a fantastic movie. 10 Cloverfield Lane was just by far, like, extremely impressive. I'll just say that. But if you look at it from a sequel standpoint, next to Cloverfield, just blows it out the door, man. For sure. Number 4. And of course is going to be from the Rocky franchise. This is going to be another one of those type of situations where I think like Rocky 1 and 2 are definitely better written, better type of movies. When it comes to like, just overall movie in general, I think they were written very well. But now we're looking at this from an entertainment standpoint. I would say by far one of the, out of all, 7 of these Rocky movies, Part 4, Rocky 4 is definitely the best. It's just so entertaining, so fun. Rocky 4 is definitely the first Rocky movie I ever seen when I was really young. I thought 1 and 2 were so boring as a kid again. And then as I got older, I grew to love them and appreciate them again, how a lot of movies were growing up for me. But I think just in the end, just from watching 3 and 4 and 5 so many times as kids, those are definitely my favorites in the series because it's just what I grew up on and what I'm used to. Again, now, like, do I think that they're better written, better made movies than 1 and 2? No. So, I mean, if that makes sense to any of you guys, again, I hope you get my point here. But anyways, Rocky 4 is so much fun. Love the music. Love the story. Love the training montage in this. It's just everything all around is just so much fun. Reminds me of my childhood. Just, yes. I mean, Rocky 4 is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time, too. And Rocky is my all-time favorite franchise. So, bam. Rocky 4. Strong number 4. And Rocky 4 came out in 1985, directed by Sylvester Stallone himself. Getting closer to the number 1 spot. It takes us to number 3. And I think a lot of people might actually agree with me on this one because I hear this a lot. But of course, from 1991, directed by James Cameron, we got T2, Judgment Day, Terminator 2. Just, there's so many things about this movie that are better than the first. This movie, to be honest with you, I mean, if it really comes down to it, I think it's a pretty 50-50 for people. You get like half people think that the original Terminator is by far the best, and then you get about half people that think part 2 is better. But in my personal opinion, I love Terminator 2. It's just, they're just two different, styles of movie, in my opinion. Like, where Terminator 1 is, from like an 80s movie, and this is a 90s movie. So, I mean, for right off the bat, you get two different, feels of movies. But yeah, I mean, I just think there's so many things I like about number 2 that's better. I like the fact that, Schwarzenegger in this film is a good guy instead of a bad guy, which, I mean, isn't a bad thing in the first one. I mean, that's definitely cool. I mean, to see Schwarzenegger play a bad guy, something a little bit better than Mr. Freeze. But to see him play a bad guy was kind of cool. But I just like him better as the good Terminator. And then I just like the story with the whole, the whole Skynet thing, and how, they talked about it a lot in the first one, and then we get to see like the dream sequence from Sarah Connor when, all the bombs go off, and just that dream sequence was just crazy as hell. I just think the action is better in this movie, and I just love the T-1000. Of course, what the hell's his name? Robert Patrick was just awesome in it. So there's just a lot of things I like better. Of course, Edward Furlong. We get to see John Connor young. I just think it's just awesome. I just love everything about this movie. The soundtrack is awesome. Get some GNR in here, but yeah, I mean, by far, I think just in my opinion, T2 blows away the first Terminator. Love it. Strong number 3. I knew this was going to place high in my top 10 list for sure. All right, definitely coming in at a strong number 2, a strong runner-up to the number 1 spot, and that, of course, is 2005 Rob Zombie's Devil's Rejects. Wow, you guys. I mean, they just, again, feel like two completely different movies, in my opinion. I mean, I just love how Rob Zombie completely swapped the two around, where, like, in the first one, it just feels more of like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre type thing, where, like, this crazy family is just killing people that break down on the side of the road. And number 2, now you get the 3 killers from the first one. Now you get like a 180, like everything just kind of just swaps, and instead of like the bad guys chasing the good guys, you got the good guy, the crazy avenged sheriff chasing after the bad guys. So like the bad guys are running away from the good guy. I mean, I love that aspect, and I think Rob Zombie just so brilliant in doing something like that. I just love it. I mean, oh my God, I cannot tell you guys how much more I love number 2 compared to the first one. Is the first one a good movie? Hell yeah. It's an awesome movie. But there's just something about the sequel, The Devil's Rejects. It's just like, it just feels like a completely different movie. And it almost could be. I mean, other than tying the characters and stuff together, you know, they just feel like completely different movies. I mean, obviously we know why the sheriff is after them because of what happened in part one, you know, when his brother got killed. But still, I mean, you could have made this movie without the first one and just had that as a story. And it would have worked, you know what I mean? But oh my God, just one of the coolest things I've ever seen written for a movie is what Rob Zombie did in this second movie, this follow-up to House of a Thousand Corpses. I've been hearing bits and pieces and rumors on the internet that Rob Zombie's been talking about a third film. I don't exactly know what he would do, if it would be an actual third film or if it would be more of a prequel or midquel, because obviously, spoiler alert, we know that they all die, or you assume they die, but whatever. But oh my God, you guys, strong number 2, by far one of the best sequels ever made for a movie. Wow. All right, we have come to the final one, the number 1 spot, the greatest, in my opinion, the greatest movie sequel ever. Take a look. You knew it was coming. 2008, directed by the man Christopher Nolan, The Dark Knight. How many people agrees with this? You hear people talk about this all the time. I think one thing that tends to happen sometimes is like people talk about this movie being so good that they just completely forget about Batman Begins. I've kind of explained this story to you guys before. When I first heard that they were remaking Batman, I was a big fan of the Tim Burton Schumacher series, more Tim Burton than Schumacher, but I didn't want them to remake Batman. I just didn't want them to do it. And then when I seen Batman Begins, I guess at the time I didn't quite understand what Christopher Nolan was doing. I thought it was a cool movie, but I didn't exactly love it when I first seen it. And then when The Dark Knight came out, not only did I freak for this movie, I just absolutely fucking loved this movie. It made me like Batman Begins even better because I understood where the direction Christopher Nolan was going and the importance of this big origin story of Batman. It needed to be told for this type of trilogy and this story that Nolan was going for. But there's so many things about this movie that are just, oh my God, just top notch, you guys. Obviously, you know I was gonna say it. Heath Ledger as the Joker just takes the cake. One of the best reasons why not only myself but so many other people love this better than the first one is because of Ledger's performance. Just completely remarkable. I mean, I can't think of a word to use to describe his performance, but this movie is just fantastic, you guys. It's my all-time favorite DC Marvel film, number 1, if you guys remember that. It just kicks ass. It's just such a cool story. I mean, the whole trilogy, the whole Dark Knight trilogy, like just Nolan's take on it, how he gives it a realistic touch, you know, not so fake and kiddish, you know, with the stuff that took place in the Burton Schumacher, you know, with the whole Freeze, Mr. Freeze, and just like, you know, how, you know, we wouldn't have somebody being, you know, affected by whatever the hell that shit was called, toxic waste, and it gets all deformed like the Joker and Two-Face. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're completely entertaining films. I love them, but I just love Nolan's realistic vibe, his realistic take on this. Even with like Batman's gadgets and his suits. I mean, I love the way they explain it, like when Morgan Freeman explains the suits and the gadgets to him, how they work. It's just so realistic, you know, and I love that. I love how we're kind of getting off base from Dark Knight, but like Dark Knight Rises, I like how they call, you know, Selena Kyle, she's not Catwoman, she's Selena Kyle, a cat burglar. You know, like, you know, it'd just be cheesy to call her Catwoman. You know, if you understand, you know, catch my drift on like the whole realistic tone, but just keeps my heart pounding from beginning to end, on the edge of my seat, every time. It's just a brilliantly, can't even speak, written movie. I mean, Nolan knew what he was doing. He did his homework, and wow, he just gave us something that we've never seen before. You know, not only a amazing Batman storyline or amazing take on the Batman, but just an amazing take on superhero films altogether. I mean, I love the MCU, but I just love what he did with this. I just think it was like, it couldn't have been told in a better way, the story of Batman. So, yes, by far, #1 best movie sequel ever, in my opinion, The Dark Knight. And I can't see a movie ever surpassing this for a movie sequel. So, all right, everybody. So there's my top 10 list for the best movie sequels ever. So this was a cool one to put together. Like I said, a lot of fun creating this list. And I thought it was kind of a cool idea to put together for a top 10 list. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I do have some other ideas coming up for some top 10 videos. I don't know when I'm going to do the next one, but I already have some stuff planned. So we will definitely do another top 10 video very soon. If you guys have any ideas you want to throw at my, throw my way, drop a comment down below and let me know what you guys think I should do next for a top 10 video if you guys have an idea. But there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoyed this top 10 video and you want to see more of them, definitely give it a thumbs up. Just hit that like button right down below. Like I said before, drop a comment. Let me know what you think of the video. Let me know what you think of my top 10 list. What is your guys' top 10 list? What do you think are the best movie sequels in your opinion? Share the video around. Subscribe if you have not. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.